Is Tre Mann Summer League breakout legit? Is there any concerns over Chet Holmgren's shooting struggle? Plus, Jared Butler deserves some love and everything else from game 2 of Thunder Summer League.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Also follow me on Threads at Rylan_Stiles. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by FanDuel, we're going to dive into the Oklahoma City Thunder falling to the Memphis Grizzlies, but Tre Mann has a legitimate breakout in Summer League. Chet Holmgren's shooting struggles, the turnovers, is it all being overblown? Plus, Jared Butler should be on a two-way contract, and a lot more from Game 2 of Thunder Summer League. This show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook app of Locked On. So check it out and make every moment more by visiting fanduel.com/lockedon today to get started. So in this contest, the Thunder did not have Jeremiah Robinson-Earl or Keontae Johnson. They're both out for Salt Lake City with injuries. Did not have J-Dub either. He sat out in this game. And then, of course, Cason Wallace cannot be in this game because he is not officially in the Thunder. The trade is not official until the 6th, which is tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. I would guess that it's probably the best bet to say that Cason Wallace will play on Saturday in Vegas. But I guess technically, if the trade goes through in the afternoon, it can be tomorrow. But we'll see on that. So the Thunder roll out a starting lineup of Tre Mann, Jared Butler, Ousmane Dieng, J. Will, and Chet Holmgren. The biggest story from this game to me is Tre Mann's breakout. We talked about Chet Holmgren's return to the court yesterday. We talked about kind of what this Thunder team looked like in Summer League. And of course, J-Dub was awesome yesterday, but like Tre Mann, I think that this breakout is more legitimate. And I can already hear the comments and hear you all screaming at your device, whatever you're listening to this on, which I appreciate, about how it's just Summer League. But like, Tre Mann specifically has looked terrible in Summer League the last couple of summers. Like, he shot like 26% last year in Salt Lake City. Like, it's not as though Tre Mann routinely shows up and dominates Summer League and then falls flat. He actually normally doesn't play well in the Summer League session. And so that's why I think it's a little bit more real, but also it's beyond the box score. These are obvious high-end stats for him, and he's not going to put up 28 points, 24 points. He's not going to put up these numbers every night in the NBA. But it's about how he's getting to these numbers and how he is putting together these games that looks so repeatable. For Tre Mann, he just looks more polished on both ends of the floor than he does a year ago. I think his confidence is truly back, and it's truly in a good spot. And I hate to speculate necessarily on like confidence and stuff because we don't know these guys. Like, we don't know if they're truly lacking confidence or not. He just looks more sure of himself on the court, more decisive with what he's doing, more comfortable on the court. And if you go back to Monday's podcast, where we preview Summer League and talk about, what was expected and what to watch for and everything else, the biggest thing to watch for was, can Tre Mann cash checks? Because even last year where his play fell off and it was concerning, he still got to his spots fairly well. He was still good at finding openings, finding ways to create opportunities to score. The ball just wouldn't go in. But these last two games, the ball's gone in for Tre Mann in a big way. And what even adds more validity to it a little bit is that, Tre Mann oftentimes has not been able to stack success. Like, maybe he has a really good game here and then has another couple bad games and a good game. And so that stacking of success was encouraging to see from Tre Mann as well. And so with Tre Mann, he goes 10 for 14 from the floor. He goes 2 for 6 from 3. 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, 28 points. The ability to get by his defender really stood out in this game. To set his defenders up and break them down, his range from 3, the offense looks really good. But I think that lost in the 25, 28 points, these last couple of games, has been his defense. His defense in these 2 games was much improved from where it had been in the NBA. And again, it feels very repeatable because it's not as though he's like turning into like Lou Dort or some like great isolation defender. It's just the little things that he's doing. He's switching very good. He's getting guys placed in position and helping communicate defensively. And he's staying attached to his matchups hip very well. So just the tracking stuff that he's doing defensively is good and does feel real because, again, it's not as though he's facing off with some lesser competition and shutting them down, holding them to 0 for 10 shooting in isolation. He's not doing that. And if he was, that'd be, honestly more concerning or more dismissive because he's not going to do that at the NBA level. The stuff he's doing here on both sides of the ball, but particularly on defense, that's going to be his role. If he ever does click and ever does figure it out at the NBA level, that's going to be his role. He's going to be tasked with switching off ball, making sure that guys are in the right position and making sure that they're all right out there. He's not going to be put on an island to defend. And so being able to do that, and whenever the ball gets swung his way, holds its own, stays in front, good footwork, like that stuff is and does feel more real. And the question now becomes, like, a couple of them do. One, it's just 2 summer league games. Who cares? I think that we've kind of addressed that these last couple of podcasts. So we'll move on from that question. The other question becomes, is it too little too late for Tre Mann? And I honestly think, despite this being the boring answer, I honestly think that it's too early to judge either direction for a lot of different reasons. I think that you look at the Thunder roster and we see, like, oh my goodness, they have 4 cuts to make and trying to pick it all right now. I would just again refer to what Sam Presti has said, because everything he said to this point has came true. So I don't think that this is any different. From the beginning, Sam Presti has talked about, whenever this rebuild started and really started, he talked about how they want to build a team that every year training camp and the internal competition within it is, stressed and is important and is really good because guys are fighting to be part of this group on the other side. And he said flat out, not everyone is going to make it. But at every turn, you see the Thunder put an emphasis on internal development and internal competition. And so I think that Tre Mann, what he's done in Summer League, has bought him enough to earn a ticket to that competition. He's earned a ticket to training camp, in my opinion, and he can fight for his job in training camp. And if he keeps this up, you have to remember that if he plays well for however many more games he's going to play, I'm not sure how many he's going to play from here on out, but if he keeps this up in Summer League and he keeps it up in training camp and in preseason, you have to remember that, like, guys for Tre Mann like that are former first round picks, they have a lot more legs to them, more juice, more leash to them from the organization because you've invested that first round pick in them. And so I think whenever you mix his showing in this setting in Summer League this year with his rookie season and the fact he's a former first round pick and yada, 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 that he's shown enough to not only warrant himself an opportunity in training camp to make this roster, but even if it's too late for this Thunder roster, because the roster crunch is so severe, because you have to cut 4 players, I think he's earned himself the opportunity somewhere else. Because someone's going to have to get cut, someone's going to have to be gone. But I think that another team, either via a very, very, very small, minute trade or just giving him another shot outright if he's cut, that he'll get that, because you're seeing the flashes, you're seeing some of the good stuff that he's doing. And I think that this breakout is more legit than what we typically see from a third year, guard. Like being a third year guard in the summer league, you have to play well, or else that's a really bad indictment. But sometimes we can cast aside their explosions on offense because of the qualifiers of how it's summer league. I don't think that that's the case with Tre Mann. Again, these are high end numbers. The numbers will come down in the sense of just the raw, 28 points. That's going to come down in the NBA. That's not going to be him in the NBA. But the efficiency and the pathway to points, I think, is legit from Tre Mann. Coming up, let's talk Chet Holmgren. A lot of you are concerned about his offense. Is that warranted? We'll talk about it coming up. But first, I want to tell you right now, my good friends over at FanDuel, folks, FanDuel is great. It is the official sports book of Locked On. So make sure that you check it out, because it's America's #1 sports book. And what you should do is go there, because FanDuel, you can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $2,000 if your first bet doesn't quite hit in bonus bets back. You can actually get that win or lose. That's right. You get to bet $20 in the sports book, and then boom, you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose, if you go there right now with the FanDuel Sportsbook. So this is actually a really great deal. By going to FanDuel.com/lockedon, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon, you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet does not win, or if it does win. Either way, it's $200 in bonus bets. So check it out today at FanDuel.com/lockedon, because, folks, you can bet on Major League Baseball. In fact, FanDuel is the official partner of Major League Baseball. It's a lot of fun to go over there and bet on. We can even check out a game. So you want to get that $200 by depositing, your money at FanDuel/lockedon. We can live bet on some of these games happening right now, or bet on some games that happen tomorrow, like the Reds and Nationals. The Reds are a 1.5 underdogs on the road in Washington. Hey, how about the Reds? Let's jump on them. They're pretty hot, aren't they? So tune in right now, or go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Folks, Chet Holmgren, offensive struggles. Are they real? Are they overblown? What's happening? We're going to talk about that. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. You everydayers listen every single day. Thank you. Subscribe to the pod anywhere you get your podcast from. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter, LO Thunderpod, and on Threads at Rylan_Styles. And we got a lot going on. We're going to recap this Sixers game tonight. We're going to recap the Mavericks game over the weekend. Monday, we're going to set the expectation level for this team, because I am very excited about what we've seen over the course of Summer League. But right now, we're going to dive into Chet Holmgren's offensive struggles in this one. So overall, he is 0 for 5 from 3. I should say, in this game, he was 0 for 4. Last game, 0 for 1, 0 for 5 from 3. All of his shots are short. We have to remember, Chet Holmgren has not played basketball in a year at a competitive professional environment. And I keep thinking back to at the All-Star break and at the All-Star events. Whenever I was there in Salt Lake City, the altitude was legit. I asked Jaylin Williams about, their first game being in Utah after the break, if you remember, and J-Dub telling me that the altitude is no joke and that it was difficult and they have to be prepared for it and have to be ready for it. And that was, playing it in a Rising Stars game. And so I think that is a undersold compartment of this. Like, obviously he's not in 100% ready game shape in the NBA after having, a year off, but he's also having to do this with and against the altitude, which is another wrinkle into this whole sphere. So as far as his jump shot, his legs are going to get back into it. His rhythm's going to get back into it. And I am not concerned in the slightest. I have a billion clips on my phone of Chet Holmgren at practice, at shoot-around, in warm-ups, nailing threes. In fact, I have 100 clips of him nailing shots on a scooter. He shot 40% from 3 in college. I think that we can agree to relax because as that jump shot and as he gets in shape, it is going to be fine. His handle is loose, and it's especially loose whenever he's trying to create a bucket for himself. He does look a bit loose, a bit rusty. I will say 2 qualifiers for this. Number 1, he's not going to be right away an ISO scorer at the NBA level. So that alleviates some pressure there. I think that whenever you add playmakers like Josh and Shea and the rest of this team, he'll get a lot better offensively because he'll be put in better positions. And I'd also say we got to remember in Summer League, these guys are being aggressive for a multitude of reasons. Number 1, hey, you're a former number 2 overall pick. You have all the hype. If I can make a play against you, then it's gonna stand out. Also, not only that, you have 10 fouls in Summer League per game. No one's going to foul 10 times in 40 minutes. So who cares? You can be as aggressive and as, just demonstrative and disruptive on defense as you want to be. Because you're going to get away with some of it, and whatever you don't get away with, it doesn't matter because you're in no risk of foul trouble. In 40 minutes, you're not racking up 10, 9, or 8 fouls. So you're not going to get in foul trouble. You're not going to put yourself behind the 8 ball in terms of foul trouble in Summer League. If anything, you're going to be aggressive, get away with it, and look even better for your potential case of, earning a spot, earning a job in the NBA. So I think we have to remember that too when we're talking about Chet's turnovers. He'll be put in better position by Josh and Shea and them. And in the NBA, there's a lot of different factors. Number 1, you can't be as aggressive because you only get 6 of them. Number 2, okay, if you want to just be obnoxiously aggressive and doubling and sending help to Chet, do it. Because that means you're taking guys away from Shea. You're taking guys away from J-Dub. You're taking guys away from, it's pick your poison at that point. So he'll be in better position to score at the next level, at the NBA stage. I think that if you go back and watch this game, you'll see many times where he makes excellent rolls to the rim. He makes excellent cuts. And the guards just can't find him or can't give him the ball or don't want to give him the ball or aren't looking for him. And that's going to change because if he was hit on every single time he had a good roll to the basket, the box score looks better, the product looks better, and we are freaking out about how incredible it is to have Chet Holmgren with this team offensively. So I'll grant you, it's a lot of turnovers. I'll grant you the shot is short, but I don't think it's worth freaking out about. And not because it's Summer League, because, hey, he needs to get into game shape. You can't do that in a 2-game span, especially facing the altitude. You cannot simulate anything close to NBA basketball. He got cleared for 5-on-5 full contact, around exit interviews whenever he said that on his exit interview. So, from then till now, you can't simulate NBA basketball. Try as you might. This is the closest thing to it. And he looks winded at times. He looks like his shot is short at times, obviously, even around the rim. But I'd also point out he went 4 for 4 at the free throw line, which is also a good indicator of shooting touch. So I don't think he's magically lost it or magically no longer has an ability to score or to shoot. So I'm not concerned about that, especially whenever you flip it over on defense. He truly looks elite defensively. And the fact he's at that stage already with all those other qualifiers we mentioned for his offensive game is a bit insane. His natural instincts are there. His rim protection is there. The help side stuff is just truly wild. And what is the most encouraging part to me is how versatile he can be as this roaming free safety type. But also, I think that whenever you put him in position as a lone big, he will look even better than he even does right now on defense, which is a scary thought for the other team. He's blocking shots at the rim. He's blocking 3-point jumpers. He is just, so good on that end that I am very comfortable in saying from day one at his position, he will be in the upper half, top end of the league at his position defensively. He looks really good. He looks really strong defensively. And he finishes with 10 points, 11 rebounds, and assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 3 for 8 shooting, 0 for 4 from 3, has not hit a 3 yet in Summer League. He had that spinning jumper, which is nice. He had a nice step through move also, which I think he fell short on a step through a bit, but still the step through in general was nice and is a way for him to create a shot for himself that we saw him pull off on Monday. But Chet Holmgren is going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay with Chet Holmgren. I think that from what you saw the last two games, and from what you heard him say about how, if you brainwashed him and made him forget the injury, he feels physically as if the injury never happened. He's checking every single box of his rehab as he's done the entire way to this point. He's just checking off another box. And so everything points to him not only proving to you he's an elite defender, but also it looks like he's going to get back to that top end potential of his despite the injury, which was a concern, and it no longer feels like a concern because of how he's been able to do it so far in Salt Lake City. Let's talk Ousmane Dieng. He started out slow, but the give and go dunk with Jaylin was awesome. Him in transition has always been good, both as a rookie and this one still. He's still a really good defender. That defense is already there for him. 2 blocks. He had 6 rebounds. He had 2 assists. He shot 50% from the floor, 1 for 4 from 3. He can truly overwhelm guys on the perimeter. I will say, you still want to see him get better, kind of sticking his nose in it and being somebody who wants to get in on the action in the half-court offense. But I think that second half, he was much improved. And so he was not good at all Monday. Came into this one, had a little bit of a slow start, but overall played a lot better today, and just keep building on that for a guy who is so young and who we knew was going to be a project at the end of the day. Like, we knew this was going to be the case for Ousmane Dieng. And so I think even now, with a whole rookie season and with 2 summer league games of his next season, he has still played to expectation. He hasn't played over expectations. He hasn't played under expectations, to me, of what we thought he was going to be on draft night last year. And as a prospect, he's been really good defensively. He's shown flashes offensively, but still has a lot to work out. And he's going to continue to grow at such a young age. So I think that with Ousmane Dieng, it was encouraging to see him make a bit of an adjustment in the second half. Coming up, let's talk Jared Butler. Let's talk Jay Will. Let's talk Jaden Shackelford and the new rules. Plus, the Thunder lost this game to Memphis, who's the MVP of the game, and more. Coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. For your next listen, folks, go check out the Locked On NBA podcast for the national perspective on all that's going on in the National Basketball Association. So go do that. Subscribe and we get your podcast from to our podcast. Follow me on Twitter and Threads at Rylan_Styles. And let's talk Jared Butler. He came out on fire. Finishes 3 for 7 from 3. 6 assists against 1 turnover. A block, 4 rebounds, 45% from the floor, 16 points. He worked really well on ball, worked awesome off ball, and he showed up defensively. He showed up in a big way defensively. And so, that I'm biased toward Jared Butler. I think he's really good. I think that he can be a player who really helps OKC. And I think that the help might get a bit muddy. I think that when you look at Jared Butler and when you look at this team, you now get 3 two-way contracts on a team who already has their roster chock full with guys who you think should play minutes. Think in your head about the guys who you would advocate for Mark playing next year. How many names deep is that? Okay, so when you look at Jared Butler and you factor in what he can bring, the stability and the talent to the Oklahoma City Blue to help nurture some of these young guys with the Blue, as well as being young himself, along with, in a pinch, what he can bring to the Thunder if needed as a two-way guy, there are not very many better options than that. Because look, if you are having to rely on a two-way player in Mark's rotation not named Keontae Johnson, something's gone pretty wrong, either developmental-wise or injury-wise. And so if you do get to that point where you need a Jared Butler or insert any other two-way that's not named Keontae Johnson here, then are there any other options you'd rather call on in a pinch than Jared Butler? And so I think that all those things add up to where what he can help with the blue while you send guys like Keontae Johnson down there, while you send guys to the blue, like we've seen how Mark and this organization will shuffle guys to the blue. There's probably not a better option out there in a two-way deal than Jared Butler for the Thunder specifically. For a team who we know utilizes the two-way, who we know rely on the two-way and want to maximize the two-way and want to develop the two-way. They've done it at a very good clip to this point, but they have their guy that they're developing on the two-way deal. They have Keontae Johnson on that two-way deal. How many more chances do you think a non-Keontae Johnson player on a two-way deal will get at the NBA level? Barring injury, barring something disastrous happening developmental-wise, which I can't even foresee. So it's really just barring injury. So barring injury, how often you can even call in another two-way guy? So now you're just focusing on what they can bring to the blue, what they can bring to your organization at that level. And I think that Jared Butler's stability as a ball handler and in the pick and roll can really help the guys you're going to be relying on him to develop and the blue to develop next year. So I'm excited for him. He had a really good game tonight. I think he shows you why he should be that two-way guy and brought back on that two-way spot. And the organization likes Jared Butler. They brought him in last year, and I think that he'll be back, hopefully, on a two-way deal. Let's talk Jay Will. I glowed about Jay Will yesterday. I'll do it again today. Love his positioning. Love his activity on both ends. Jay Will just does a lot of stuff really good. And Thunder fans will like him a lot more than people nationally will. And respect him a lot more than people nationally will. Because we see it. We see all the really good stuff he does on a night-to-night basis. But he doesn't do anything elite. Doesn't do anything great besides drawing charges. That is elite. But like his playmaking at his size is awesome. You know, the activity on both ends, the positioning defensively, his ability to contest at the rim, despite not swatting a ton of shots, although in this game he had 3 blocks, which was awesome. That chase down block was awesome. Like, he just does everything really good. And I hate to use the crutch of like comparing him to Nick Collison, but it's the same type of thing where like Jay Will impacts the game that at a level where you can't understand by looking at a box score or advanced metrics or stuff like that. You have to really watch the game to see how much Jay Will impacts things. Because 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 3 blocks. You have to watch the game to see what he does. And one of the bigger things that he does is communication. And I've talked about that since covering him in the G League. Whenever you're sitting in the G League arena and you're sitting at the scorer's table and there's nobody in the building besides on field trip days, which don't even get me started on those. But in general, night after night, there's nobody in there. Jay Will communicating will give you a headache because he's so loud and he's so into the game that like you can hear him on the broadcast screaming and talking the whole time. So the communication he provides, this the kind of anchoring he provides defensively, like the stuff he does isn't going to get written home about nationally, but he's just really good. Like, he's just really good and a really good rotational piece for the Thunder. And he deserves some shout out here. Jaden Shackelford, really bad defensively, and that's what holds him back, honestly. Like, even in the G League, he's bad. He's not good defensively in the G League either. And that's what holds him back. He's a really good shooter, 2 for 4 from 3, really awesome shooter in game 1 as well. But if you're wondering and watching him, and you're wondering, like, how can a guy who shoots this well not get an NBA chance? That defense is going to be an Achilles heel for him. I do want to highlight him, not because of the 2 for 4 shooting, but the flop warning. The flop warning technical, I've called games in college as a play-by-play guy with this rule in play. I like the rule. It was the wrong call here, and this is where it's going to start to get a bad reputation. It's because your first experience with it is a bad one, so now the rule just sucks. But when implemented the right way, I think it's a really good rule, and I think that it's a rule that should stick. But again, this was a very bad use of it because Jaden did get elbowed in the face. It wasn't a flop. He got clobbered in the face, and so it optically it's not great that a guy who got elbowed in the face is called for a flop. But in the big picture of things, having called games and experienced games that have this flow of like the flop tech, it's fine. It's going to be okay, and I think it's going to be a rule that is good if they go to it on a permanent basis. So the Thunder once trailed by 16. They only grew a 2-point lead. There was 5 lead changes, 2 ties. The Thunder had a strong end of the first half, which I thought was going to propel them, but then it ended up not propelling them at all in this game. In the sense of the second half, they came out a bit sloppy, kind of turned it back on in the middle of the third, and then Memphis eventually got control. OKC lost the rebounding battle by 6. OKC had way more turnovers again, in this one. 18 turnovers for OKC in this contest. The Thunder 1 points in the paint. They lost second chance points by 10 points. They lost fast break points 13-4. And off the bench, Memphis had 21 points. OKC had 7. And on those turnovers, like the big kicker here for why Memphis won and Utah didn't, Memphis had 29 points off of OKC turnovers. The Thunder shot 47, 29, 78. Memphis shot 40, 44, and 77. And you could tell, I think, that they missed that steady hand of J-Dub in this game. You mentioned whenever games get sloppy and the game got boggled down at times tonight, you missed having J-Dub out there in this one. So up next, we're going to recap the Sixers game. We're going to recap the Mavs game. Monday, we're going to set the expectation level for this team, plus take your mailbag questions. So drop them below on YouTube and Twitter and Threads, everywhere else. Drop your questions. MVP of this game? Yeah, I'm going to give it to Tre Mann. So until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.